Welcome back to episode 2 of Betrayal in Blue, Cops Who've Crossed the Line. I want to thank the people who have subscribed for subscribing. That's very nice of you all. And anyone who's watching who hasn't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I'd like to clear up a little thing about the giveaway. Apparently some people were confused. They sent me a couple messages. It's not the 1,000 person that gets the prize package. It's when there's 1,000 subscribers, one random person within those 1,000 will get the prize package. Second thing is, some people wrote they wanted to help me with my video. I know my post-production skills are not the best, probably terrible really at this point, since this is only my second video, but I will get the hang of it hopefully. Thank you for your offers. And they will definitely get better, I hope. First thing I want to talk about is people wanted to know my opinion on the George Floyd situation. It's been a couple of months back, and everyone and their mother has talked about it by now, so I'll just give you my brief opinion on it. And remember, it's my opinion. This is not fact in the case. I don't know facts on the case. No one really knows facts on the case. Nothing's been released other than what we've seen on video. So George Floyd was handcuffed, and he was taken into the back of the patrol car. And it was actually like a Suburban, wasn't not a regular car. And there was a second video that came out that showed him sitting in the back seat, and he was complaining about not being able to breathe. I don't know if he was a little claustrophobic, or maybe it was because of the drugs in his system, but he was complaining he couldn't breathe. So I'm now assuming, because the video then cuts to Mr. Floyd on the floor with the officer's knee on his neck, I'm assuming they took him out of the car. They called a bus. Again, bus is ambulance in police terminology. And they were waiting for him. He might have been a little combative, struggling because he couldn't breathe, so they put him on the ground just to keep him in place. And let's get it straight. I don't think anybody in America, law enforcement and non-law enforcement, agree with the knee on the neck. Not even for 1 second, never mind 8 minutes or so, whatever it was. It should have never happened. The officer's hands were free. He could have, put his hands in the middle of Mr. Floyd's back, on his shoulders. He could have held him down 100 different ways. Why he chose to do it with his knee on the man's neck, I don't know. Did it contribute to George Floyd's death? It definitely was a contributing factor. Was it the cause of his death? I don't know if it was the cause of his death. He was already complaining of difficulty breathing prior to that. So that's my opinion. And the other thing was, people want to know if the other officers should have grabbed him or got the officer's knee off Mr. Floyd's neck. I mean, hindsight is 2020. Monday morning quarterbacking. You could say anything. At the time, they may not have thought it was as horrible as it turned out to be, or maybe they were scared or reserved for this officer. Maybe he was, had a more control of the scene because he was a senior officer. I can't speak for someone else's mind. It should have never happened. Plain and simple, it should have never happened. He should have held him down 100 different ways until the ambulance got there. So let's move on from that. I did have another story of corruption planned. I literally researched hundreds of corruption stories. And I had one planned. It was about some Texas cops who were a little out of control. But breaking news, a couple of you guys have actually sent me the story. NYPD cop was just arrested this past Monday. Surprise, surprise. Do they ever learn? I've been told multiple times, the Academy has been showing, I don't know if they specifically show the 7.5, but they teach our story about cops flipping and going over to the other side and selling drugs and working for drug dealers. This officer must have known about that, even just with the documentary, even if they didn't learn about it in the academy. It's not a training film for you guys to go out and commit crimes. This is preventative. Learn from all mistakes. Don't do that. Stay straight. Stay on the straight and narrow. This officer was, I believe he was in the 113 precinct. He lived on Long Island. He worked in Queens. And these guys make a lot more money than we did back then. Back then, I think my best year was in the mid 40,000. This guy's paycheck last year was $108,000. He was still turning out crimes with drug dealers. I mean, they have him on text messages back and forth to the leader of the drug gang he was getting payoffs from. He was seen flying, and this was a Dominican drug gang, much like the one I worked with Diaz. And they have him flying back and forth to the DR twice. Do you not learn? I mean, you're making yourself a target. Don't do these things. Stay straight, go up through the ranks, whatever. So they arrested him Monday. They raided his house out of Long Island. He's on suspension. He had $1 million bond. They put him on house detention. I guess he made the bond, and they put him on house. He still can't leave the house even though he made the bond. And we'll see where this goes. I mean, it's incredible. The guys just don't learn. Here it is. We got caught in '92. This is 2020. It's 28 years later, and guys are still doing the same thing. I don't know how much of a numerical value he made off this drug gang. Apparently, it was going on since 2016, so he was 4 years deep into it. And there were 5 other people arrested with him within the drug organization. I believe one of them was an informant, a cooperating informant, because he is listed on a separate indictment. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it's happened multiple times since our arrest in '92, where guys are arrested in New York too, not just the whole country, but in New York. And I don't know what they're thinking. Like I said, where 7 to 7.5 is not a training film. It's it is a training film in a way for you to not do the things we were doing, not to improve on the things we were doing, or go along with what we did. What else we got? We got Q&As. We got the bizarre deaths. Let's go to bizarre deaths. We have 2 that weren't actually my job, and then 1 that was my job. The first one that wasn't my job was pretty basic one, but it is sort of bizarre. It was wintertime, and the responding unit got a call for a guy stuck in an air duct. It was an old restaurant that was abandoned, and the duct over the stove, the man's feet were hanging down through it. When they ended up finally getting there, the guy was frozen solid. He must have broken into the roof overnight, tried to come down through the air duct, and he got stuck in there, and he froze to death. So that's one. Another one we have is working a midnight tour, and was in the house on meal break, just coming off meal break, and my buddy's dragging in a big trunk, and he's dragging it through the back doors of the precinct over to the muster room, and the boss on the desk is, "What do you got there?" And he's like, "I don't know, Lou. It feels like a body in here." And the trunk was locked, so they didn't know what was in there yet. What happened was they were patrolling down by the Fountain Avenue dump, and they saw a guy coming out of the weeds, and they grabbed him, took him back where he was coming from, and they found his trunk. Trunk was locked. Guy wasn't talking, wasn't saying nothing about it. So they cuffed the guy, threw him in the car, got the trunk into the car. They brought it back to the house. They opened the trunk finally, get it open. They call emergency service, which is connected to the 7-5 precinct. They come around, they open the trunk for him. There were 2 bodies in there. So he was being sarcastic. There was a body in the trunk. There were 2 bodies stuffed in there, 2 dead bodies. So I don't know what happened with that either. That was, wasn't my job. It went on to the detectives, probably investigated the guy they brought in. Who knows what happened. Third one was my job. It was actually my job months before. I got a call in Storage City, and this story's in my book. And it was a couple calling about a bullet coming through their wall from the other apartment, and it lodged right above their baby's crib. So we were pretty upset about it. We got up there, and sure enough, there's a bullet in the wall right above the baby's crib. And it came from the wall on this side, which was the common wall between the apartment next door. So we go knock on the door next door. There's 2 teenage boys in there, and no parents are home. Father had a shitload of guns in there, and they were playing with a rifle, and obviously it was loaded. I don't know what the hell they were thinking, and they fired it off, and it went through the wall, and thankfully it didn't hit the baby. So we grabbed up all the guns. I think the kids ended up going to Spofford, and which is a detention center for boys. And that was the end of that. Months later now, maybe even a year later, it was quite a while. Get a call of man down, shots fired. Recognize the address in the apartment right away. It was the teenager's apartment. Fly down to the scene. It wasn't our job. We fly down to the scene as a backup. Get there, and sure enough, man, these 2 kids, the father must have petitioned to get all his guns back. 2 brothers, they were playing with the guns, and one brother shot the other brother dead center in his chest. DOA on the scene. So that's, I don't know if it's bizarre, but it's definitely strange as a death, records as a death. So those are three stories. We got some frequently asked questions. One was the obvious one. Do I speak with the cast members of the 7-5 since everything went down? Once we were arrested in '92, nobody was communicating with each other. When the documentary came out, then there was some communication opened. I met with my ex-partner at the 7-5 precinct to film a scene. And then again, we met at a couple of the premieres, the first one in New York City and another one in Brooklyn. We got along, for the most part. We were not obviously on the best of terms, but we weren't at each other's throats. Since then, we really haven't spoken. A couple of times we went back and forth on Twitter. Social media makes for terrible people. So we pretty much have cut off all communication. I do speak with Perez every now and then. He has my number, I have his number. Once in a while, we get back and forth, update each other on what's going on. Chicky, as you've seen, if you follow my social media, he has come down and visited me. We speak every couple of weeks on good terms. Chicky and I are on good terms. Diaz, he actually interviewed for my book. So I spoke with him then, and spoken with him a few times since then. When he started his 7-5 cigar company, he sent me 2 boxes as promotional cigars to hand out. I gave them out at local car cruise nights. I took a box of Daytona, handed them out to a couple of the guys down there. So it's a decent cigar. I liked it. It was pretty smooth. I am a cigar smoker. If you follow my social media, you know that. That was another question. What cigar do I like most? It's Cohiba Red Dot. So, other question was, would I get involved in would I get involved in corruption if not for my ex-partner in the $100 situation? That's hard to answer. I mean, I was 7 years in prior to that, and I was exposed to corruption, and I didn't cross that line other than, basic nonsense, which every cop does, free meal, drink on the job, that type of stuff. But there was no money or drugs that I took, or nothing like that. So that was 7 years when I met my ex-partner. I would have had another 13 years to go. I'm sure I would have been exposed to more corruption then. Would I have crossed the line? I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. It's very tempting when you come across these things, and sometimes even if it's not tempting, you're put in a situation where you don't want to give up the other guy and become the so-called untrustworthy cop. So you go along with things. It's possible I could have. It's possible I was on the sergeant's list. I could have made boss and gotten, went up the ranks like a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends retired lieutenants and captains. So it's hard to say. What was the other question? Other question was the welcome to the land of F story. Everybody wants to know that. Everybody is one of their favorite lines in the documentary. It's a true story. I didn't just come up with that for the documentary. I was a year in on the job, did my 6 months in the academy, did my 6 months in NSU, which was a neighborhood stabilization unit that was in Bed-Stuy. And on the last day of neighborhood stabilization, we found out where we were going. So my buddy and I were going to the 7-5 precinct. We had 2 days off. We didn't have to be assigned there for 2 days. But it's actually, for us, it was on the way home from Bed-Stuy. So we figured, let's, instead of dragging all our equipment home and then back, on the way home from Bed-Stuy, we'll get our equipment and find a locker before the rush of rookies coming in. And that's what we decided to do. So we went to the precinct, walked in the front doors, as opposed to the rear doors once you're assigned to the precinct. And we come to the front gate. 2 old timers. One is the TS operator, telephone switchboard operator. Another one's on the desk. Old white hair on the desk, a sergeant. And the guy in the telephone switchboard was on limited duty for an injury. And he was definitely a hire from the late 60s. This is now 1982. And we walk in, we don't go through the gate, and we pull our tins out, and we say, we're being assigned here on whatever the day was, 2 days later. We'd like to come in and find a locker and get situated. Doesn't answer us, doesn't blink, and out of his mouth goes, "Welcome to the land of fuck, rookies." My partner and I just look at each other. I was like, another burnt out cop, man. We've met quite a few working in Bed-Stuy with FTOs. So we just walk in and go, okay, thank you. We go down to the locker room and find our locker. So that's the land of F story. What else is there? There were some more questions. The one was a silly one. Do I know Dan Bongino? I don't know Dan Bongino. He was assigned to the 7-5 long after I was gone. He's, I think, 15 years younger than me. So no, I never had any interactions with Dan. From what I know, he seems like a nice guy. Never met him. Didn't work with him. We weren't in the precinct at the same time. I do know, I shouldn't say no, I had paths cross and dealings with Bo Dietl, who was a detective in the 7-5 before he became private security and an actor. He played himself in A Wolf of Wall Street. He was in Goodfellas as the cop who arrested Henry Hill. I think he enhanced a couple of my robbery cases back then. There was no online booking sheet. It was like 20 pages, 25 pages for each subject that you had to arrest. So it was a lot. And I had made a robbery where there were 3 suspects, and I brought them into the precinct. And at that time, there was detectives had to enhance a robbery case. So I think he enhanced a few of my cases. At that time, he actually wore, from what I remember, and my memory may be off, I'm old now, cowboy boots. And he didn't wear a tie. He wore like I don't know what it's called, like a barella. It's the cowboy thing. It's like the 2 strings hanging down with a plastic piece. That's what he wore. Seemed like a nice guy. No cross words with him. So that's as far as that goes. Next week we have more Q&A, another corrupt cop story, the one I was going to get into this week about the Texas cops. I'll tell that one. That's a pretty decent story. Also, I have multiple. I'm very happy and very surprised. Multiple cops that want to come on the show and give their views on the current atmosphere of policing and talk about possibly any corruption they might have come across in their career. So that should be interesting. I just have to arrange a date with them. Hopefully I'll get them on the next episode. Like I said, please subscribe to the video. It helps with getting noticed, obviously. Like it, share it on your social media, share the video. It's very easy to share. And thanks for tuning in. Hopefully these videos are going to get better in the post processing situation once I upload it. There's a lot of little tricks that people are messaging me about. Hopefully I pick up on them again. I'm a dinosaur. I'm not up on all this stuff. And we'll see what happens. Look forward to next week and talking to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in.